Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Winston Kelly here with the NASCAR Hall of Fame and delighted on behalf of Joe Gibbs Racing and Interstate Batteries to welcome you here to a very special press conference. Very special welcome to everyone here from Interstate Batteries, our NASCAR Hall of Fame members, and of course the media to this afternoon's announcement. The gentleman to my left need no introduction, but just very quickly, we have the owner of Joe Gibbs Racing, Joe Gibbs. Beside him, the chairman of the board of Interstate Batteries, Norm Miller. To his left, the driver of the number 18 Interstate Batteries Toyota in 2015, Sprint Cup champion, Kyle Busch. To his left, the 1999 Premier Series champion and 2014 NASCAR Hall of Fame inductee, Dale Jarrett. And to his left, the Senior Vice President of Racing Operations for Joe Gibbs Racing, Jimmy Makar. And we'll hear from all these gentlemen in just a moment, but to kick this afternoon's activities off, I'd like to welcome to the stage the Chief Marketing Officer for Interstate Batteries, Dorothy Jones. Dorothy?
Welcome, everyone. It's such an honor to be here to mark this historic occasion. You know, 25 years ago, a relationship was born out of a friendship between two men, and that's Norm Miller and Joe Gibbs. And with that, a lot of great successes have happened. Well, we would say, I'm very new to the family here, only being here 10 months. I will say that in Homestead is when it began for me, when our number one driver won the Sprint Cup championship, Kyle Busch. And that kicked off for us at Interstate how we wanted to celebrate our relationship with Joe Gibbs Racing. And so in April, when he turned around and won again, you can only imagine the excitement. We've been planning for a long time to say, how do we celebrate and commemorate this relationship? And when we think about how it started 25 years ago and look at 1993, when Dale Jarrett actually won our first championship, you have to think that was a special moment. So we said it's so appropriate to have a commemorative look at how it happened with the number 18 car. Well, it will actually be unveiled while Kyle is driving in Darlington. And we're so excited about that right now. So to do that today, I would like to ask Coach Gibbs and Norm Miller to take a step over here so that we can share with you the excitement that happened 25 years ago and the excitement that's going to happen again when this is unveiled on the Darlington track, driven by Kyle Busch, that they unveil our prize-winning look of the number 18 Interstate Batteries car. Whenever you guys are ready, y'all can do it. Keep smiling. There it is. Dale Jarrett drove this car and won the championship going against Dale Earnhardt. So we talk about that is the vehicle, the look at our champion side by side with our future champion for the upcoming Darlington race. Thank you guys, really appreciate it.
Well, Coach Gibbs, we'll start with you. And first of all, a sincere thanks to you and your organization for allowing the Hall of Fame to be the location that you chose to do this. A great relationship that we have with Darlington and their throwback weekend, and of course, our inductee, Dale Jarrett. But take us back to that first conversation that you and Mr. Miller had and your thoughts on how that relationship has evolved and continued for 25 years. It's almost unheard of in any form of sports.
Well, people have heard me tell the story, but I love telling it, so I'll tell it again. JD and I had got together, the family, Coy and everybody, and we talked about being in racing. Don Meredith, not the football Don Meredith, was helping us think through things. And we came up with a little program of what we thought a race team would look like. And it was on a sheet of paper. And so I had a conversation with Norm as the second person I called. And he said, come on down here. We walk in. He had his whole team in there. And basically, Norm goes, now, where's your race shop? And I said, we don't have one. He goes, now, who's your driver? And I said, we don't have one. And he goes, I said, Norm, this is a dream on a sheet of paper. And so when you stop and think about that, I called him back 2 days later. I said, I know this is a huge deal, probably something that your company can't do right now. And he goes, Joe, we're thinking about doing this. And when you stop and think about that, somebody have enough guts that would step out and do something like that. And I kid Norm, and I told him, you're the only guy dumb enough in America to have done this. And we wound up in racing. So in any case, that was the way we kicked things off. It was wild, and to be here 25 years later, to have won a championship again for them, it's a thrill for us. And for everybody here, you always say, what's different about our sport is you have great partners and sponsors. You don't need a sponsor to play football, basketball, baseball. In racing, they're a huge part of it. They're partners. And to see them go through this with you and get what they really invested in, it's a thrill for me. And it's the friendships that you develop, too, that are awesome.
Mr. Miller, I've heard that story a couple of times, and it may be new for many folks here. But I've not heard it from your perspective. Take us through that discussion and you and your company's thought process to make this investment, which clearly has worked out.
You know, I think, Joe says it was such a dumb decision that I was just, pretty stupid. And I thought about, 25 years later, I think I was right. But anyway, what the thing that happened is that we had run a few races in NASCAR, lower level American series at the time, and then we ran a couple in Cup. And so we ran a survey, and it showed where our customers, the people that sell our batteries, that they liked NASCAR to the tune of like 69% watched a lot of it, and then NFL football, 70% watched a lot of NFL football. So I thought, so what's this deal with Joe? And so what are we going to get for our money? What's it going to cost? And so I looked at it and I said, well, we're paying the going rate for NASCAR. So we get Joe football free. So I said, we'll sign this deal and go. Plus the fact, I will tell you that I'd known that, now was it racquetball or handball? Racquetball. Racquetball, that he won a championship, right? Didn't you?
Seniors.
Anyway, senior championship racquetball. He won in football, and I thought, heck, the dude might win in racing.
All right, whether it was a smart decision 25 years ago, you've obviously continued it because it works for business. How does this relationship impact your business, and how do you use it as a marketing tool?
Well, there's no question. It gave us, we had a pretty good foothold in the distribution in the United States, but it gave us an instant credibility, especially with all the other type of sponsors that are in NASCAR. They were, like one time we had Shell Oil on the back of our car, and they were the largest company in the world. And so here we were the lead sponsor, and Shell Oil was backing us up. And so that gave us an instant credibility. And then on top of that, it didn't hurt that Joe won the 02. Yeah, you won the 02 Super Bowl.
91?
Yeah, 92, won the 92 Super Bowl. Then we turn around and come to Daytona, and all the press from the football followed him down to Daytona. I really think that he was a major cause in all that big uplift that occurred in the early years of when we first got started. And so they came in here, and we had these assistant sponsors. So we've got, to give you an idea, that we started with Joe, we had one national automotive account on a national basis, which Mitsubishi. And today we have 15 out of 18 throughout, of all the car companies that sell our batteries. And so we're extremely fortunate that we hooked up with Joe and the team and Dale and Bobby and my friend here. He's actually still winning for us. So.
Well, the reason you did the whole sponsorship is because you knew I was coming. Right?
You rascal.
Now that's incredible foresight. Have to give him that.
I
Coach,
did tell Joe, let me butt in here. I did tell Joe when you were you released?
I was fired.
you were fired over at Hendricks, Brother Hendricks. And so I remember I got the data out on Dale's racing career. And I started going down the victory percentage and top fives and top tens. And I said, Dale, I meant Kyle. I said, this guy, he finishes top a lot of races. I said, Joe, you ought to sign this guy. He may win for you for 20 years.
it's working out pretty good.
And I said,
You got 11 more years coming.
We need more money to sign him. And I said, we need more money to sign him.
Yes, I know. The funny one was he told me the second year we raced, he said, it's expensive, Norm. He said, we're going to have to raise your price if we're going to win a championship. And I said, well, I thought that's what you told me I paid for last year.
He's not paying me anymore, so.
Oh, come on.
Well, let's talk about the memories. Let's get away from this for a second. Joe, a lot of great memories over these 25 years. Looking at this car and this paint scheme, what memories does it bring back for you, and what does it mean to you to see it back on the track here in a few months at Darlington?
Yeah, actually, when we first started, Jimmy Maker will testify to this, but our first paint scheme, Norm wanted candy apple green. And so, Jimmy, we don't have a lot of money in those days. I mean, we're struggling. We got 17 total people, and we painted that car about 3 times with candy apple green. It cost us about $3,000 first car. And I said, we're going to go broke before we get out of the gate. But Norm was insistent upon green, and we eventually got him back to enamel or whatever it is. And so, but I got to tell you one great story on Norm. I can't miss when you talk about memories. Our very first Daytona 500, Dale won't appreciate this, but, Dale's driving our car. And honestly, this was crazy. Our first 500, we started from the back because we'd been in a wreck in the 125s. That car went to the front faster than I think any car. I'm going like this. I go, we're going to win our very first race. This is awesome. This is easy. And so we're coming down the back stretch about 2/3 of the way through the race. There is a wreck. We're in the middle of it. The car's tore all to pieces. And so we're back in the garage area, and red flag, everything. And so the TV cameras are back there, and all this stuff's going on. And I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, it's Norm's very first race with us. He's a first-year sponsor. We tear the car up in the first race. What's he thinking? And about halfway through all that, Norm's looking around, and he turned to me, and he goes, hey, this is not so bad. Look at all the TV coverage we're getting. Tell jail if we're not running good, get in a big wreck. This is perfect.
Yeah. I said, win a wreck, man.
That is a true story, okay? I just want to tell you, that's the way he looks at things.
Well, this was a profit deal. We were in
That's
funny
a
thing, though,
different, that's
about
a different,
with
different
Maycar,
marketing tool. Let's get in a wreck, get TV coverage. DJ, let's go forward to 1993 when you got the better form of TV coverage. It's been well documented about your dad's call and what an iconic race. But one of the things that hasn't been talked about quite as much as perhaps it should is it was Joe Gibbs Racing's first win. What did that mean to you personally?
Well, it meant a lot for a lot of different reasons. As a competitor and athletes, if you will, you look at things that are going to make a difference in your professional career. Well, and I'll back up just a little bit because the first meeting that I had with Joe Gibbs and Norm was in a little conference room at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and there was very little talk about the ability to drive a race car, the ability to win. It was about so many other things. And I realized this was like no other job interview I'd been on in my entire life. And I think that, I'm sure that Kyle probably at this point realizes that the opportunity that he has at Joe Gibbs Racing whether he sees it all right now or down the road, and every other driver that's been there, and Bobby Labonte and I have talked about this, is that it changes your life in a lot of different ways. Yeah, we all want to, we're such great competitors, and we want the opportunity to win, and that's provided. But the way that it changes your life in so many different ways that's much more beneficial to you in the long run is what really comes about. And you will appreciate this even more as you quit winning races and realize other things about your life and think back on it. So that part of it is great. To bring Joe Gibbs that first win and it be the Daytona 500 was just tremendous thrill to me. You know, I trying to take it all in because I had dreamed about winning the Daytona 500 and to do it the way that we did it. Jimmy had brought a great car. We had a great test. Everything went perfectly. It seemed like, you know, my biggest obstacle that day wasn't passing Dale Earnhardt for the lead on the last lap. It was trying to get around a rookie named Jeff Gordon so I could get to second so I could do what I knew I was going to be able to do to Dale Earnhardt because his car was so loose. So as we celebrated in Victory Lane, there were a lot of things going on. But I'll tell you a quick story of one of the things that went on there because we had this deal with the NFL. And so I was wearing a different team's helmet every race. And just so happened that these things were kind of drawn, and that's how we came about it. But I don't know if luck or being unlucky, the way that Joe might look at it, but I was wearing a Dallas Cowboys helmet. Now, I'm not a Dallas fan, and I know Joe wasn't for sure, obviously. But I was wearing a Dallas Cowboy helmet that day, painted just like there, and I'd set it on top of the car. I realized soon after the cameras started rolling there that somebody had gotten rid of that Dallas Cowboy helmet, and it wasn't until a few minutes ago that I think I saw it for the first time in 20-some years. I didn't know where it got to. I just knew that it wasn't on top of that race car anymore. So he was quick to make sure that he did that. But what a tremendous day, and you think back that that's where the winning started, and with Kyle and Matt and everybody that they have now and contributing, and they're up to 135, just tremendous. But that day, you know, my dad calling the race, passing Dale Earnhardt on the last lap, bringing Joe Gibbs his first win. So many things happened that were just tremendous and enjoyed it so much. And to think back, you know, it's a long time ago. To see this paint scheme means a lot, and for Kyle to drive it at Darlington is going to be a special feeling. So it was a great day. The one thing, as we talked about, were we going to be able to make this happen as far as me driving for a football coach, a sponsor that had never been, you know, they didn't have anything. They were just telling me they had all of this together. And my one, it wasn't quite a demand, but it was as close to demanding something that I was and did. It was that before I was going to sign on a dotted line, this guy right here, Jimmy Makar, had to sign on a dotted line because of the people that I knew in the sport. He was my brother-in-law, but he was the person I knew could take this and make it happen. And if I would have known how big of a task it really was, I'm not sure that I would have asked him to do it, but I certainly appreciated him doing it, and the amount of work and effort and that they put forth was just incredible. And to see how Joe Gibbs has gone about this, you understood why he was so successful as a football coach, because above everything else, being a great business person, he's a people person. I said that soon after I got to know him, and it was just tremendous. And I know I'm over my time limit, but I'm going to tell you a quick story.
You don't have a time limit. You're a Hall of
That
Famer.
almost made me think, did I really want to come do this or not? So after we had these meetings and the talks got serious, Joe said, look, I want you and Kelly to come up to the Redskins park there and organization and see kind of how we do things. So he was going to pick Kelly and I up at the airport in Washington, and this is in the summer of 1991. And so we go up there. He said, I'll meet you and Kelly at the gate. And so we get off the plane, come in, don't see Joe, stand around 5 minutes, no Joe. So we start walking out towards the baggage claim and transportation. We were just there. We were getting on a flight back that night after dinner and stuff. So, you know, we didn't have anything but the two of us. And as we're getting close to the front of the airport, we finally see Joe coming in at that time, coming through the doors. So we stand and talk maybe 6-7 minutes. And he said, okay, let's go. He said, we'll go out here, get in the car. And he said, I'll drive you over and kind of show you around, which was tremendous to see how they went about everything as we finally did. But here's the thing that made me a little bit concerned. And I'm not sure that Joe remembers this, but so this is it's 90-some degrees in this, I think it was July or August. And so we step outside. and we take about 4 or 5 steps out, and Joe starts looking around. And I always says, you know, cars parked everywhere and everything, and I thought maybe somebody was picking us up or something then, that he had. There was a short amount of time that he had parked his car, come in, said hello, talked to us. He could not remember where he had parked his car. Had no idea. And so that night, we go to dinner, we see all the stuff with the Redskins, we get back on the airplane, Kelly said, "Is that concerning to you at all that he can't remember where he parked his car?" And I said, "Yeah, maybe a little bit." But thankfully, we didn't let that get in the way. He remembers the important things, I'll say that.
And he had won a couple of Super Bowls by then. So
yes,
it
he
kind
knows
of
how to
worked out.
win.
Jimmy, okay, we've heard 3/4 of the background. You're the guy that had the daunting task of putting this whole team together. Your recollections of that and leading up to this car, or car that looks like this, winning the 1993 Daytona 500.
Well, daunting task is probably a really mild way of putting it, because, you know, like Dale, you know, I had a really good job going at the time. When Dale called me and asked me about crew chief this, I was working for Roger Penske, who is the premier motorsports guy in the world. We had just started a new stock car team, so things were going really good. We had Rusty Wallace driving, who at the time was a champion, and so things were looking really good. So Dale calls me and tells me he's getting ready to go to work for a football coach in a team that's never been put together, and do I want to come do it with him? So, you know, I said, all right, I'll talk to him. I'll go meet Joe, and I'll talk to him and see what's going on. So I think I remember Dale, this silence on the phone at that moment for about 10 or 15 seconds. Are you sure? And I said, yeah, I'll talk to him. So we met, Joe and I met at a little, at Sheraton Airport Hotel. I was getting ready to go on vacation, and we met in the lobby there and just sat down in a chair. And for probably 2 hours, my wife and I, Patty and I, and Joe sat and talked. And what I remember was getting up from that conversation and Patty and I getting on the airplane, and I looked at her and I said, "What do you think?" She said, "I like him. He's a neat guy." And I thought, I do too. There was something about Joe and the way he handled people, what he told me about people and team building and how he went about it, that just resonated with me. Of this is a guy that knows how to put something together, whether he's done it before or not. This is the guy we need behind us. So I went ahead and accepted the job. And so after I did that, I said, "Well, where are we at? What have you got? What's going on?" And he said, "Well, I've bought a few pieces and parts and stuff from Rick Hendricks. He's helping us get going here. We're going to get engines from them, and we got a few parts I need you to go over there and get over at Hendricks Motorsports." Well, I had hired one guy, David Wagner, and he and I went over there. It was in, I think, August-ish. We went over there, and there sat a room with parts scattered across the floor, 3 half-built race cars, and that was it. And I said, "This is what we're going to start with." They said, "Yeah, this is what we're going to start with." So we started with that, and then had no building, had to find a building, build the building, make it into a race shop, order some new cars, hire the people, get the whole thing going. It was quite a task, to say the least. But like Dale said, we showed up in Daytona that first year. We had built a car for that race, and we were good. We were pretty fast. I mean, we had a decent lap time that year, but we had to run the 125 and to really get our start position. And I remember Dale was trying to pass Earnhardt for the lead. Coming off a 4 and got a little loose and eased it into the inside wall, knocked the nose off a little bit, so we had to go to the backup car. Well, the backup car was an old Darrell Waltrip number 17 short track car that we just converted, because of lack of time, into this. Now, you got to realize we started the team in August, and this is February that we're in Daytona. So we took that car and got it out, started the race, 38th or 39th, I can't remember where exactly now. And by the time the big wreck happened, we were running 4th, and got turned and wiped the car out, as Joe was talking about, and that was our introduction to racing. But you know, it's been a great ride, as Dale has said. You know, I've learned more from Joe and Norm, and the partnership and friendship that they have bonded together, and you know, it's more about life and life lessons that I've learned from Joe and Norm that impressed me.
Well, 25 years and 4 Sprint Cup championships later, I would say it's worked out pretty well. Kyle, the theme here seems to be the sales job that Coach Gibbs has done on these other 3 guys. What was the sales job that he gave to you, or that he and Norm gave to you, to come to Joe Gibbs Racing?
I was
A
selling
lot of money.
myself at that time.
A lot of money.
Yeah, I was jobless at that time, so I was selling myself. So apparently I conned him into a pretty good job for myself. So I'm not too bad of a salesperson myself. Or Norm was helping. I guess it was all Norm who.
All me. I'm sure I'm responsible for all
yeah,
of this.
yeah, it was all Norm. So again, he's responsible for all of this. But you know, it was that same old August time of the year where it was time to go around and talk to different race teams, and talking with Joe was one of my first stops that I made. And obviously the conversations went really well. I enjoyed everything about meeting Joe, talking with JD, and having Todd and Pern and everybody there in the room. So things obviously just kind of progressed from there. And what's funny is when it was all kind of coming down, Joe he wouldn't tell me who the sponsor was, but I knew who it was, with M&Ms that were on the side. But M&Ms must have been pressuring him about getting the deal done and having me join the race team to drive, because Joe called me about every other day. Hey man, where we at? Hey man, where we at? I mean, it was the same, Joe, we're nowhere. We're in the same place we were 2 days ago. Trust me, we're working on it. We're getting there. But man, he pressured me every other day for about 3 weeks. And finally, I guess I gave in and decided that he was the place I needed to be.
Reigning Sprint Cup Series champion, you won the Southern 500 back in 2008. What does it mean from your perspective, from a historical perspective, and also where we are now, to race a car that's this iconic, and especially this iconic for Joe Gibbs Racing and Interstate Batteries?
Yeah, it's really special for me. It's a great opportunity because of what Interstate Batteries and Joe Gibbs Racing resemble and what they mean for each other. Because without one, I'm not sure the either would be where they are today. So really 25 years later, it's really an honor to be able to race this car and to have it happen at Darlington, which Darlington's been doing the last couple of years with this throwback scheme theme. It's really entertaining for not only the race fans, but of course the drivers and the teams as well too. We saw last year with the Petty guys and the 21 car, I believe, and even Kyle Larson with the 42 car, about how they all get into it with you know, the fire suits and the team uniforms. And Larson actually grew a mustache and got some hair going on, so to look a little bit more like Kyle Petty. But it's certainly a fun deal to be a part of, and I'm honored to be able to drive this scheme and look forward to hopefully having a good weekend with it, and of course none other than going to Victory Lane.
Okay, we're going to have breakout sessions for these guys, but we got time for 2 or 3 questions from the media. If any of the members of the media have questions, Kathy has a microphone. If anybody back there has a specific question that you'd like.
While we're doing that, if I could make one comment on Jimmy coming on board. At that point, we had Dave Alpern, who's here today as our president. We have JD, who of course at that time they were all in their early 20s. And we had Todd Meredith, who ran operations up until about 6 months ago. And we had Don Meredith, his dad, helped start the team. And so Jimmy was responsible for all these young guys when they didn't know anything about racing at that point. And so we put Jimmy in charge of everything. He had budgets, he had the kids, he had everything. And so we threw a lot at him. And I think I can still remember this meeting about 6 months into this. I had a meeting at football's the only night I got off was Thursday. I'm eating dinner. Don came up and said, I need to talk to you about something. And when he came up, this is what he said to me. The first bite I had of my steak, he goes, we're $250,000 in the hole. And I choked at that point. And we put Jimmy in charge of everything. And from that point on, but I do want to say to JD, inspiration for all of us. And to have Dave and have Todd to be a part of that, and have those young guys go 25 years for us and wind up being a part of the team and everything. And so I just really appreciate these guys, all of them up here, and what they've done for us. And I just really wanted to mention that about JD and the team there.
A lot of loyalty, but I think the common denominator is right here. Kelly, you got a question?
Kyle, you mentioned Larson growing the mustache. You have anything planned to look like Dale back in the day, throwback?
It would take a mustache. I had one then.
And a mullet?
I can't do facial hair. I have this gene pool. It doesn't quite work out well for that, so it might have to be a little tape on or paint on type deal.
I think Larson's was a tape on, wasn't it? No, his was real.
I thought it was
hair.
real, yeah. His hair was a wig.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it would certainly be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of the whole makeup of the team and what the crew uniforms and the driver uniform and stuff looks like. So we'll play it up as good as we can. Did you have a mullet then too?
Gosh, we're talking. Yeah, I'm almost 60. I can't remember everything. So. I don't think right then I did.
Brian Nelson with the MRN. For Norm, obviously as sort of a founding partner with Joe Gibbs Racing all these years later, your role, at least from a visibility standpoint with the team, is not what it was originally, sharing with other sponsors on the number 18. But, you know, do you still feel kind of an ownership role, so to speak, you know, since you have such history with the team?
Yeah, you know, not as much. It's hard. It is hard to not have qualifying every Friday and a race every Sunday, and you know, it's your colors. It's 18. It's green. It's interstate. But it's been a great relationship to end up being the official battery for Joe Gibbs Racing, and to have the quality of drivers, of course, like Kyle and then Matt and Denny and Carl, and just to be able to represent the quality of organization that Joe and the team, Pern and JD and them and all built, and so it's a privilege. You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you something. When we first met, that we explained, I told Joe I had that I hope this doesn't come off kind of something, but anyway, I had come to Christ like at the age of 34, and so I had semi-retired at Interstate, not retired, but I was moving along. And so I told Joe, I said, look, I'll do a new endeavor. I'd like to be involved with this racing thing, and I think it's fun. But there's two things that at this stage of my life that I want to be concerned with. And one is that I want to be able to try to honor God and Christ in whatever we do. And then the second thing I said, but we also want to win. And so he said, you know, hey, man, I'm of like mind. I agree with you on the first part. And I live for the second part also, so we're going to go racing and we're going to try to honor God in the process. And all of that through the years have been pretty dadgum basic, would you say, for everybody, pretty much everybody involved.
Well, I think that's a great way to end the formal part of our press conference. We'd like to invite these gentlemen to come down and get a picture beside the car, and then they'll be going into breakout sessions. A big round of applause for Joe Gibbs, Norm Miller, Kyle Busch, Dale Jarrett, and Jimmy Maycar. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here, and best of luck September the 4th, the Bojangles Southern 500 and the Interstate Batteries Toyota.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, man, thank you.
Alrighty.
Thank y'all for being here. We're honored to have you. You remember that? Oh, yeah. Yeah. He said, Norm, we don't do this. I said, Jimmy, at least put the decals on. He did. Maycar told me. And he said, Norm, all he got it was the paint job. No labels or stuff, you know, because all stick on. He said, Norm, you know, we're doing NASCAR, we don't do green. And then he said, besides that, the whole thing is ugly. He said, I don't want to do that car. And I said, well, Jimmy, at least put some decals on it. Take a look at it. The green's worked out.
Green has been good.
Green has been good.
You remember that?
Oh, yeah.